Imagine for a moment that feeling like an outsider isn't a social failure, but proof that your mind operates on a level that less than 5% of people will ever experience. In his exhaustive work, Carl Jung uncovered a specific mode of being he named differentiated consciousness, a perceptual framework so advanced that the vast majority of humanity never accesses it. But the truly staggering finding is this: the very individuals who possess this rare psychological blueprint often navigate their lives believing they are fundamentally flawed. Jung's records are filled with instances of men and women of profound inner depth, conditioned by society to see their core traits, their fierce intensity, their heightened sensitivity, their inability to be satisfied with superficial truths, as personality defects rather than markers of a truly exceptional cognitive and emotional architecture. The most jarring discovery: Jung didn't just see these individuals as unique, he saw them as the vanguard of human evolution. They are the living embodiment of our species' next leap in consciousness. Come with me on a journey into the heart of Jungian thought as we map out the 8 unmistakable indicators of this rare personality. If you find your own reflection in these descriptions, every time you were told you were too much, it will click into place. It was never about you being too much for the world, it was about the world not being enough for you. Because this is the truth Jung unveiled that mainstream psychology still struggles to grasp. The very characteristics that make you feel like an outcast aren't glitches. They're system upgrades. You are not malfunctioning, you are pioneering. Jung famously stated, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But what happens when your true self operates outside the guardrails of societal norms? What if your passion, your insight, your rejection of a shallow existence aren't problems to be solved, but rather signals of what I call a highly advanced psychological operating system? Look at it from a biological imperative. The pioneers who have consistently propelled humanity forward were those who were constitutionally incapable of accepting the way things are. They felt more, they saw more, and they demanded more from reality. Yet here lies the devastating paradox. Society often conditions these very people to mute their greatest strengths. You've been told your entire life to be less sensitive, less passionate, less analytical. Jung, however, saw that these so-called flaws were actually hallmarks of psychological differentiation. That rare capacity to process and interact with reality on a multi-layered dimension that remains invisible to most. Cutting-edge neuroscience is now validating Jung's century-old observations. Dr. Elaine Aron's work on highly sensitive individuals has identified that about 20% of us have nervous systems built for deeper sensory processing. But Jung was pointing to an even more rarefied group: individuals whose entire mental and emotional structure is operating at a more complex level. And the most heartbreaking part: these individuals often conceal their abilities, having been trained to perceive their gifts as heavy burdens. You've learned to turn down your own light because its brightness makes others uncomfortable. Let's illuminate the first clear marker of what I term psychological rarity. Sign 1: you possess what I call high fidelity emotionality. Jung made a revolutionary discovery about the nature of intense emotion. He observed that certain individuals don't merely have emotions, they live within what he termed affect, toned complexes, powerful inner states that create a rich, resonant inner world. You don't just feel happy or sad. Emotions move through you with the complexity of a film score, each note layered with information that most people simply don't register. And here's Jung's critical insight that many modern therapists overlook. This is not emotional dysregulation. It is emotional intelligence in high definition. When you experience profound feeling, you're not overreacting. You're perceiving what Jung called the collective unconscious, accessing databases of human experience that most have shut down. You sense the unspoken truth in a room the moment you enter. You register the emotional static in every conversation because your psyche is designed for depth, not for skating on the surface. Jung noted, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But for you, Everything is a key, unlocking rooms of understanding others don't even know exist. Saying too, you operate from a place of what I call incorruptible inquiry. For Jung, the majority of people live what he called unconscious lives, adopting social norms and beliefs without any real interrogation. You, however, are psychologically incapable of doing this. A Jungian analyst would immediately identify you as someone with a dominant thinking function that refuses to accept things at face value. You don't stop at what, you relentlessly pursue why. Why do we accept jobs that drain our life force? Why do we tolerate systems that dehumanize us? Why do we settle for interactions that lack genuine soul? Jung called this capacity the transcendent function, the mind's ability to find a third way, a path beyond the current binary oppositions. While the world settles for the existing reality, your mind is already architecting more truthful, more humane possibilities. But here is the challenge I've witnessed in people like you. Your questions expose the shaky foundations of others' belief systems. When you probe for depth, you aren't just curious, you are inadvertently dismantling the psychological defenses others rely on to feel secure. If you've ever been told you overthink things, or that you're being difficult just for asking why, comment below. My inquiry is my integrity. Sign 3, you have forged what I call sovereign self-reliance. Jung declared, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Through necessity rather than preference, you've undertaken this very task. According to Jung's clinical observations, these rare personalities often achieve what he called an individuated consciousness, far ahead of their peers, frequently forged in the crucible of adversity. And here's what Jung saw that is so often missed. This self-reliance is not a trauma response, it is a psychological triumph. You learned, likely the hard way, that staking your identity on external approval is a recipe for psychic annihilation. So, you went to work. You built an inner home, a core self that cannot be shaken by the presence or absence of others. Jung named this journey individuation, the lifelong process of integrating all parts of oneself into a unified whole. Most never finish this journey because it demands confronting what Jung called the shadow. Every part of you that society told you was unacceptable. Your time alone is not a sign of loneliness. It is a conscious return to your center. It's your sanctuary for remembering your true self beyond all the social masks. For Jung, this core of self, knowing, was the bedrock of all genuine mental health. Sign 4, you exhibit what I call systemic pattern recognition. Jung forever changed psychology by classifying intuition as a primary and valid function of consciousness. In his words, intuition is a kind of instinctual apprehension, irrespective of the nature of its contents. You don't just see people's actions, you perceive the invisible systems that drive them. You see the unspoken family dynamics, the subtle power plays in a boardroom, the emotional logic beneath someone's story. A Jungian would see this as a highly developed active imagination, an ability to perceive the interconnected patterns that others miss. When a friend insists they're okay, but their whole energy pattern is broadcasting distress, you see the discrepancy. When a collective agreement is being made based on a shared delusion, you feel the dissonance in your very being. This is not hyper-vigilance, it's psychological acuity operating at its intended high frequency. But Jung issued a stern warning: without conscious boundaries, this ability will deplete you. You risk becoming the unpaid emotional regulator for every system you're a part of, processing collective anxiety and absorbing dissonance that is not yours. Sign 5, your primary drive is for authenticity, not advantage. Jung observed, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But what if honoring your true self means rejecting the prizes society dangles before you? Jung found that certain personality structures are neurologically wired for authenticity. For you, choosing a meaningful path over a popular one isn't a moral choice, it's a biological imperative. You've likely tried the conventional route, chasing external markers of success, saying the right things, playing the game. A Jungian would diagnose the result instantly: that cold, hollow feeling, a deep sense of self-betrayal, a quiet desperation even when you win. As Jung theorized, when your life is in opposition to your fundamental psychological type, you don't just feel bad, you manifest what he called neurotic symptoms. Your very psyche wages a war against a life that is not your own. You can't fake excitement for goals that feel empty. You can't maintain relationships built on social strategy instead of soul connection. Your internal architecture simply rejects it. Yet, Jung also found something incredible about those who put meaning first. They function as what I call evolutionary drivers for the collective. When you model a life of authenticity, you give others the permission and the challenge to do the same. Sign 6, you have a history of outgrowing your reality. Jung wrote, "The greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived lives of the parents. But what is the consequence of choosing to live your life to its fullest?" Jung understood a core truth of psychological development. Authentic growth is often a path walked alone. You have probably known the sharp pain of realizing that people from your past no longer recognize you. This isn't because you became arrogant, but because you shed the psychological skins that made you palatable to them. Jung referred to this as a necessary cycle of psychological death and rebirth. The relationships built around a version of you that was smaller, more accommodating, less powerful. They were built on a different foundation. And sometimes, those people missed that old foundation because it made them feel more stable. But there's no going back. Jung knew that psychological evolution is a one-way street. Once you have seen the machinations behind the social curtain, you cannot willingly return to a state of blind conformity. If you have people in your life who seem threatened by your evolution and constantly reference the old you, comment below, "My growth is not up for debate." Sign 7, you possess what I call a resonant presence. As Jung put it, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But what if your very essence acts as a catalyst for transformation in others, simply by being present and authentic? Jung identified a rare capacity some individuals have to create what he called a psychological container. When people are with you, they feel truly seen, often for the first time. You don't just hear their words, you perceive the emotional reality beneath them. You don't offer simplistic advice, you offer profound witnessing. You don't condemn, you create an atmosphere where buried truths can safely surface. Jung knew this quality of presence wasn't just a social skill, it was an act of psychological healing. But this is the paradox I have observed in people with this ability. They often run on empty from offering it too indiscriminately. You become so adept at holding a safe space for everyone else that you forget to seek out spaces where you can be fully held. Jung discovered a critical pattern in highly empathic types. They often fall into what I term helper addiction, an unconscious compulsion to heal others that bypasses their own needs and ultimately becomes unsustainable. The task isn't to care less, it's to apply your care with surgical precision. Sign 8, you are animated by an undeclared purpose. Jung wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." If you have a constant, nagging sense that you are here for more than just paying bills and seeking comfort, a Jungian would identify this as the transcendent function. In action, your psyche's innate pull toward wholeness and purpose. You feel it as a low hum beneath the surface of your life. A deep knowing that you are here to build something, to create something, to express a unique truth. It may be blurry, but it is insistent. Jung recognized this as the raw energy of what he termed creative potential demanding manifestation. This has nothing to do with fame or applause. It is about alignment, the deep psychological need to live a life that is in harmony with your soul's code. Jung observed that when this inner call is ignored, individuals develop neurotic conditions, chronic anxiety, depression, a pervasive sense of futility. But here lies Jung's most critical insight on purpose. Your true calling is never merely personal, it is transpersonal. You are not here just to self-actualize, You are here to contribute to the evolution of consciousness itself. Jung devoted his life to understanding personalities like yours. He labeled individuals with these traits as the differentiated, those whose psychological systems had evolved to a complexity that allowed them to perceive, feel, and create on a level beyond the ordinary person. But Jung also charted the developmental path for these rare souls. Knowing your current stage in this evolution is vital for your journey. Stage 1, the haunted outsider. You are acutely aware of your difference, but lack a framework to understand it. You see your traits not as assets, but as liabilities to be managed or cured. You expend immense energy trying to mimic normalcy. Jung saw that individuals in this phase often suffer from what he called persona inflation. They invest so heavily in their social mask that they risk losing contact with their authentic core. Stage 2, the conscious architect. You begin to reframe your traits, seeing them as sources of strength rather than shame. You start exploring Jung's ideas of psychological typology and find your place. You begin the hard work Jung called shadow integration, reclaiming and owning the very parts of you that you were taught to despise. This is the stage where you stop making excuses for your depth and start leveraging it. You erect boundaries to protect your energy from those who would drain it. You start deliberately seeking connections that can meet you at your level of truth. Stage 3, the sovereign creator. You have fully woven your rare traits into a strong, cohesive sense of self. You know your purpose not as an idea, but as a lived reality. You've achieved what Jung termed psychological wholeness, the ability to be unapologetically yourself while staying in profound connection with the world. At this level, you become what I call a lighthouse for other awakening souls. You don't just live your truth. Your very existence gives others the courage to seek their own. You are now a conscious contributor to collective evolution. If you are ready to stop justifying your rare gifts and start amplifying them, comment, "I am psychologically rare and I own it." But Jung left a critical warning that most people with these rare traits miss. You must consciously integrate your own shadow, or your greatest gifts will curdle into your worst poison. What does this mean? Even psychologically advanced individuals have blind spots that can derail their potential. Jung saw several shadow patterns endemic to rare personalities. The isolationist shadow. Your uniqueness becomes a justification for looking down on others, leading to a sterile and arrogant solitude. The savior shadow. You become obsessed with the belief that you must fix or awaken everyone, leading to chronic burnout and resentment when your efforts are rejected. The tragic shadow. You romanticize your rarity as a destiny of suffering, believing that your depth precludes you from experiencing simple joy or healthy connection. Jung taught that conscious shadow work is non-negotiable for psychological integrity. The aim is not to kill these parts of you, but to bring them into the light of awareness so they don't hijack your life. True psychological rarity marries immense power with profound humility, the wisdom to know when to act and when to observe, when to challenge and when to allow, when to speak and when to listen. Jung also made a crucial discovery about these personalities in relationships. They tend to attract either those who wish to consume their light or those who are terrified by it. Recognizing this dynamic is essential for creating real connection. The energy consumers. These individuals are drawn to your vitality and depth because they haven't cultivated their own. They position you as their endless source of therapy, wisdom, and meaning. They adore your gifts but are often incapable of connecting with you as a whole person. The system protectors. These are people deeply threatened by your intensity because it illuminates their own lack of authenticity. They will constantly try to get you to be less, feel less, see less, to shrink back into a more normal state. They aren't malicious. Your authenticity is simply a painful mirror for them. The co-architects. These are the other rare souls who have done their own inner work. They can meet you in your depth without needing to exploit or diminish you. They celebrate your power while standing firmly in their own. Jung discovered something powerful about rare individuals who learn to navigate this landscape consciously. They become catalysts, helping others see and develop their own hidden potential. The secret is what Jung called psychological discernment, the ability to know who is ready for a real relationship and who is just looking to plug into your energy. But this is the part Jung understood that changes the game entirely. With immense psychological ability comes immense responsibility. You aren't different just for yourself. You are an evolutionary agent. Jung was convinced that individuals like you act as living bridges between what is known and what is possible for the human mind. Through your depth, your inquiry, your steadfast refusal of the superficial, you literally pull humanity's consciousness forward. This is why small talk feels like a betrayal. This is why you choose solitude over false connection. This is why you can't just let things go. Your very being knows there is work to do, and that work is built on integrity, insight, and courage. But Jung also cautioned against what I call spiritual inflation, the dangerous trap of believing your rarity makes you superior instead of simply more accountable. The art is to hold your power and your humanity in the same hand. To know you are special without ever believing you are better. Your sensitivity is not a liability to be controlled. It is a high-level data stream to be interpreted. Your intensity is not too much. It is the engine required to break through cultural stagnation. Your refusal to settle for less is not difficult. It is the very act that raises the standard for everyone. Jung made an incredible prediction about rare personalities. As the human species matures, these traits will become less rare. The psychological architecture you possess now is a preview of where our species is headed. This means you are not merely a personal anomaly, you are an evolutionary necessity. You are living on what Jung would call the growing edge of consciousness, pioneering modes of being that will one day become the norm. This single insight reframes your entire life story. Every time you were outcast, you were actually charting new territory for what humans can be. Every time you were shamed for your intensity, you were demonstrating a capacity that threatened the status quo. Every time you chose integrity over conformity, you expanded the very definition of a meaningful life. Jung knew that evolution doesn't happen in committees, it happens in the souls of individuals like you who have the courage to embody a new possibility. You're not just living a life, you are upgrading the source code of what it means to be human. But this path comes with profound loneliness. You are often exploring trails no one you know has ever taken. You are solving problems most people don't have the perception to see. You are yearning for a depth of connection that seems to exist only in your own heart. Jung's final word on rare personalities was both a challenge and a liberation. You must learn to cherish your own rarity without needing external validation for it. The objective isn't to convince everyone of your depth. The objective is to live it so completely that you become undeniable proof of a more authentic way to exist. This requires accepting that some will never grasp the complexity of your inner world. Some will be triggered by your clarity. Some will try to dim your light because it makes them acutely aware of their own compromised existence. But Jung also saw the profound beauty in this. People who fully inhabit their psychological rarity become magnetic to others who are also ready to claim their own truth. You don't need the whole world to get you. You just need to find the other pioneers and build a new world with them. The world desperately needs your depth, your questions, and your intolerance for limitation. But you must learn to offer these gifts with wisdom, with strategy, and with fierce self-preservation. You must learn to be both a beacon and a fortress. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." You are engaged in that terrifying, beautiful work, and by doing so, you create a ripple effect, empowering others to begin their own journey of radical self-acceptance. Remember the 8 markers Jung identified as the signature of an extremely rare personality. They are not just disconnected traits, they are the integrated components of what I call an advanced psychological operating system. Jung stated in his final years, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." For you, this means embracing that you are functioning at a level of complexity and awareness most of humanity has yet to achieve. Your high-fidelity emotionality isn't moodiness, it's advanced emotional data processing. Your incorruptible inquiry isn't pessimism, it's consciousness itself resisting stagnation. Your sovereign self-reliance isn't avoidance, it is true psychological adulthood. Your systemic pattern recognition isn't paranoia, it is high-functioning intuition. Your drive for authenticity isn't idealistic, it's your soul's non-negotiable requirement. Your cycle of outgrowing people isn't disloyalty, it's the signature of a life in motion. Your resonant presence isn't a technique, it's the natural byproduct of authenticity. Your undeclared purpose isn't aimlessness, it's untapped potential demanding to be born. If even 4 of these indicators struck a deep chord within you, you are not simply different. You are part of what Jung understood to be humanity's forward flank in its own evolution. You are one of the ones tasked with pulling our species into a future of greater depth, more radical truth, and more soulful connection. Yes, the path is often lonely. Yes, it demands a level of courage most will never have to summon. But Jung was certain that individuals like you are the essential catalysts for the psychological maturation of humankind. Your intensity is not too much, it is the necessary energy to wake the world from its slumber. Your sensitivity is not a weakness, it is a superpower that perceives the pathways others cannot see. Your refusal to conform is not rebellion, it is progress. Carl Jung studied people like you because he knew a profound truth. You're not just living for yourself, you're expanding the definition of what a human being can be. The world does not need you to shrink, to quiet down, or to be more convenient. The world needs you to be precisely who you are, psychologically rare and unapologetic about it. If you're ready to fully claim your psychological rarity and stop apologizing for the very traits that define your brilliance, comment below, "I am a pioneer of consciousness." Share this with someone who needs to be reminded they're not broken, they're an architect of the new. And if you want to explore Jung's crucial insights into the darker side of this sensitivity, find my video on Final Warning to Empaths They're Draining Your Essence, where I break down Jung's most chilling discoveries about how unconscious personalities feed on the energy of the psychologically advanced. Subscribe, because our journey into the depths of your extraordinary nature is only just beginning. Remember, you're not too much. The world isn't enough. And Jung knew it's people like you who will change that. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next reality.